we have a caller from Layton, Tim. He has a question about the power of the purse. Tim, you're on the line with Senator Lee.
Thank you, Senator. Just got a quick question. It's a two-part question about Congress's power of the purse. The first one relates to why hasn't Congress, it seems, used that constitutional authority to control some of the unconstitutional behavior of the president in restricting funding to specific programs and things that he wants to do. And what is so bad about shutting non-essential parts of the government down, and why are Republicans seem to be so fearful of that? The second part of the question is, and this is one I've never quite understood, is why do the Republicans get blamed for shutting the government down? If Congress passes a budget bill and the president vetoes it, why doesn't he get blamed for shutting the government down after what Congress has already passed?
Okay, great question. First of all, as to the second part of your question, why do Republicans tend to get blamed for that? The short answer to your question is, in part, because many Republicans put the blame on Republicans. In other words, it has become this narrative, in part because of the liberal bias in the media that's well known, that Republicans are always going to get blamed. But it's not just the media. We can't blame it all on the media. A lot of this message comes from fellow Republicans. Fellow Republicans who, to my great astonishment, my great dismay, and my everlasting frustration, are willing to say things like the following, saying any member of Congress, any Republican who says, I'm not going to vote for a spending bill that funds X or Y or Z, to say that anyone who proposes such a thing is somehow threatening to shut down the government. For reasons you point out, anyone who says they're not going to vote for something that funds X or Y or Z is no more responsible for causing a government shutdown than is someone who says we have to fund Project X or Y or Z. It was always contemplated by the founding fathers, and it has always been the case throughout American history until very recently, that Congress has utilized its spending power to withhold funding from those programs that Congress deems repugnant. In fact, James Madison wrote in the Federalist Papers that this would be the great security that the American people would have against tyranny, against oppression, against bad government, that the only way to offset the kind of bad government that comes about as a result of an unaccountable government, specifically an unaccountable executive branch, would be for Congress to withhold funding from those programs. So I hope all who are joined with us tonight listening to this program will help spread the word that this is another one of those issues that's not Republican or Democratic necessarily. It's not liberal or conservative necessarily. This is simply an American issue, an issue in which the American people should have every hope and expectation that when the government is doing something that's bad, that Congress should say, we're not going to fund that thing. And the American people should reject as invalid, as insincere, as intellectually dishonest the notion that anyone saying that they don't want to fund a particular activity of government is threatening to shut down the government. We've got to dismiss that if we ever want the American people to be able to gain control over their own government. Remember, the government exists for the good of the people. The government is the creation of the people, not the other way around. We exist to be benefited by the government. We don't exist to serve the government, and I hope that will always be the case. In order for that to be the case, we have to get the American people back in charge, and in order for that to work, Congress has to gain control over the power of the purse.